I sat in that cold chair, my feet barely touching the floor, my hands clutched together so tight I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. The office smelled like old paper and air freshener that couldn't cover up the judgment in the walls. Principal Edwards adjusted his glasses without looking at me. Zara, we've had several complaints. I blinked. Complaints. About your appearance, he said, calm like he was reading a weather report. My appearance? I tried to sit up straighter. What's wrong with it? He finally looked up. His eyes never blinked. Your hair violates the school's code of conduct. I touched one of my braids without thinking. It's just braids. My mom did them last night. Precisely, he said. Braids like that draw attention. They're disruptive in a learning environment. Disruptive? My voice cracked. It's my hair. Zara. His tone dropped, like he was about to teach me something I didn't. Asked to learn. We expect students to maintain a professional and uniform appearance. Your hairstyle is outside those expectations. But I didn't do anything wrong. I whispered. He didn't even flinch. Then tell your mother we expect better choices in the future. Better choices? My throat tightened, but I refused to cry in front of him. So what happens now? He picked up a paper from his desk and slid it across to me. You're suspended. 3 days. I stared at the paper. The word suspension was stamped in red like a warning label. Over my hair that I didn't speak. I didn't trust my voice. Someone will walk you to the front office, he said, already looking back at his computer screen like I had disappeared. The car ride home was too quiet. I stared out the window, watching trees blur past like I was dreaming. Zara? My mom's voice was soft but careful that I didn't answer. She glanced over, one hand on the wheel. What happened, baby? My chest hurt, like my words were stuck behind my ribs. I shook my head, but the tears pushed out anyway. Hey, she said quickly, pulling the car to the side of the road. She turned toward me. Zara, look at me. I wiped my face with the sleeve of my hoodie. They suspended me. Her whole body went still. What? For my hair? What do you mean for your hair? I sniffed. Principal Edwards said it's not professional, that it's distracting. Her nostrils flared. He said that to your face? I nodded. She stared through the windshield for a long second, gripping the steering wheel like she was holding herself back from something. Her jaw clenched so tight, I thought she might break a tooth. They suspended you because of your braids? She repeated, slower this time. Like if she said it too fast, she'd scream. Yeah, she hit the steering wheel once. Not hard, just enough. Okay, she whispered, eyes still forward. Okay. Silence fell again, but it wasn't the kind that felt empty. It was the kind that buzzed. They messed with the wrong mother. She said under her breath, her voice cold, and I believed her. I need to speak to Principal Edwards, now. I stood in the kitchen, hand gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles were pale. My voice was calm, but the rage under it pulsed like a heartbeat. There was silence on the line. Then the school receptionist stammered, she's in a meeting. At the moment, ma'am. Can I? I'm her mother. I cut in, and I'm also a civil rights lawyer. I suggest you interrupt that meeting. More silence. Then, a nervous shuffle. Please hold. I exhaled sharply, staring out the kitchen window. My daughter was sitting at the dining table, arms wrapped around her knees, eyes swollen from crying. She hadn't said much since she came home. Just handed me the yellow suspension slip with shaking fingers. Unprofessional. That's what the teacher had called her. Disruptive attitude, the paper said. Aggressive tone. She had asked why the only Black history being taught was about slavery. When the line clicked again, a smooth voice came through. This is Principal Edwards. How can I help you, MS? Taylor, I said, my tone clipped. Ava Taylor. My daughter Zara was suspended this morning. Yes, I understand. There was a behavioral issue in class. Let's be very clear, I said, walking slowly back to the table. Zara asked a valid question about curriculum diversity. That's not behavior. That's engagement. She was confrontational. She's 13. I snapped. You want confrontation? I'll give you confrontation. Starting with a formal grievance, followed by a public statement. Do you know who I work with? She hesitated. I know. I leaned into every syllable. The National Center for Civil Rights Reform. And you just suspended the daughter of its senior counsel for questioning racial bias in a classroom. The pause was longer this time. Miss Taylor, perhaps we can schedule a meeting to discuss. I'm not interested in discussions. I'm interested in accountability. I ended the call before she could respond. When I turned back around, Zara was staring at me. You didn't have to do all that, she said softly that I walked over and knelt beside her. Yes, I did. She blinked quickly. I just asked a question. I wasn't even rude. I know, baby. I brushed her curls back from her forehead. And that's exactly what terrifies them. A smart, black girl asking questions they can't answer. Her voice cracked. Am I going to be labeled now? Like forever? I swallowed. My throat was tight. I was suspended once too. Sophomore year. You know what? She shook her head. They said I looked too urban to run for student council. Zara's eyes widened. You? I nodded. I had hoop earrings and braids. That's all it took. They said I didn't fit the image. What did you do? I ran anyway. And I won. Then I wrote a school-wide newsletter about it and got suspended for inciting unrest. She laughed through her tears. That's so messed up. I smiled and kissed her forehead. But it lit a fire. One that never went out. My phone buzzed. I glanced down. It was Maya. I picked up, stepping into the hallway. Hey, you okay? She asked. No, but I'm ready. What happened? I gave her the rundown. The suspension, the language used, the principal's tone. Maya cursed under her breath. These people are bold. We're going to bury them in paperwork, I said. I want press involved. Letters. Everything. You want me to draft something tonight? Yes. Make the language tight and polite, but loaded. I want them squirming without knowing why yet. Maya exhaled. Done. I'll loop in our comms director too. Thanks. Also, how's Zara holding up? I glanced toward the dining table. She was slowly picking at her lunch, brows furrowed in thought. She's strong. But she's starting to learn how much that strength will be tested. Welcome to our legacy, Maya said that I ended the call and walked back in. Zara looked up. Were you talking to your lawyer friend? I sat down beside her again. Yep, Maya. She nodded slowly. Am I in trouble? I shook my head. No, sweetheart. They are. Her lips curved just a little. What if they try to come after you? They won't, I said, because they don't want this smoke. She giggled, and for the first time since this morning, she looked like a kid. Again, I walked into that boardroom like I belonged there, because I did. I wasn't on the agenda. I didn't need to be. Principal Edwards looked up from his seat, startled. Ms. Avery, this meeting is closed to the public. I didn't flinch. Then, open it. A pause. He glanced around at the board members, all white faces frozen in discomfort. This isn't, he started again. On the agenda? I finished for him, stepping forward. Then make room. The silence that followed tasted like fear that I placed my leather folder on the polished table, unzipped it slowly, deliberately. My hands were steady, but my heart it pounded with every breath. I'd like to begin by reading directly from your student handbook, I said, flipping to the dog-eared page I'd marked in red. No unnatural hairstyles, no excessive accessories, no styles that may be distracting or disruptive. I read aloud, each word slicing through the room. I looked up. What does that mean exactly? No one answered that I scanned their blank faces. Not one of them met my eyes. I could hear my own pulse in my ears that I raised the photo and slid it across the table. Zara, sitting on the porch, her braids beaded, her smile proud. Is this unnatural? To you? The photo sat in the center of the table like evidence in a trial. No one touched it. No one moved. Edwards leaned forward, voice low but smug. You're blowing this out of proportion. My voice dropped into ice. No, you minimized a child's culture. A woman near the end of the table cleared her throat, shifting uncomfortably. Ms. Avery, I assure you, our policy is not racially motivated. Then explain why black girls are the only ones getting punished for their hair. The room stiffened. You know how many white girls walk around this school with dyed blue ponytails and glitter clips? I continued, and not one of them ends up in the principal's office. But my daughter gets called unprofessional for wearing protective braids. Still silence. They had no language for this kind of confrontation. No policy to hide behind when the truth stared them in the face. Edwards sighed. Look, if your child felt. It's not about how she felt, I snapped. It's about what you did. You humiliated her. You treated her identity like a dress code violation. I took a breath and forced my voice to steady. She is 12. She came home crying, asking me why her hair made her a problem. My throat tightened, but I pushed through it. So I'm not here to talk feelings, Mr. Edwards. I'm here to talk accountability. He leaned back, arms crossed. We're just trying to maintain order. I stared at him. Whose order? A few of the board members exchanged glances. One scribbled something in a notepad, pretending not to listen. Another tapped her pen nervously. I pointed back at the handbook. Your policy is a dog whistle. You think you can code racism in vague language and expect us not to notice? Edwards' jaw clenched. Ms. Avery, if you have a formal complaint, I am the complaint. I stood tall. And I'm also a civil rights attorney with a folder full of legal precedent on hair discrimination. Someone at the end of the table muttered, "The Crown Act." Exactly, I cut in. California passed it in 2019. 7 states followed. This school is now violating not just ethics, but pending state policy. A beat. The air shifted. I could feel the power moving, just a little, but enough that I turned to Edwards, lowered my voice. You don't get to decide what professionalism looks like when your definition excludes black children. His eyes narrowed. Are you threatening us? No, I'm informing you. I closed the folder and gathered the photo of Zara. The next time I show up, it'll be with reporters. And trust me, your version of order won't survive. A public hearing. As I turned to leave, someone called after me. Ms. Avery. I stopped at the door, but didn't look back. We'll revisit the language in the handbook. I let the silence hang just long enough. Do more than revisit it, I said. Rewrite it. Then I walked out, taller, louder in my silence than all their empty words combined. That I stared at my phone as notifications flooded in, ping after ping. My heart raced. Hashtag hair is her crown is trending, Maya texted. Girl, we broke the internet. I called her immediately. You posted it? Damn right I did. People needed to see what they did to Zara. A part of me felt scared. The other part? Fierce. Did you mention her name? I asked. Nope. Just the story. No faces, no names. Unless you and Zara are cool with it later. I nodded to myself, then sighed. Thanks, Maya. I'll talk to her. I found Zara sitting on the couch with a book in her lap, but her eyes weren't moving. She looked up slowly. Zara, baby Maya posted what happened. Her lips tightened, but she didn't look away. I wanted to ask, are you okay with people knowing? She hesitated, then gave a small, firm nod. If it helps someone else, then yes. God, she was brave. You're amazing, I said, kneeling beside her. From now on, we don't hide. We lead. Her eyes watered. Okay, Mom. The next morning, the storm hit the school like a wave. The secretary's voice came over the intercom. Principal Edwards to the boardroom. I smiled. Oh, now they were ready to talk. Inside the meeting, the board looked rattled. Paper cups trembled in hands. Laptops were open, displaying tweets, articles, even a morning show clip. 543 emails, one board member said. That's just since yesterday. Journalists are calling the district, another added. They're asking for statements. Edwards rubbed his temple. This will blow over. Online outrage always does. I could practically hear him scoffing from across the building. It's not just online, the woman in the floral blazer said. There are legal inquiries. Civil rights groups. We can't pretend this isn't real. He looked up. So now, we make policy based on hashtags. No, I said, stepping through the door. You make policy based on harm. Every head turned. Edwards' jaw clenched. Ms. Taylor, this is a private, then call security. But you'll do it. In front of the press. Silenced that I walked slowly to the center of the room, eyes locked on Edwards. You think this is a moment. But it's a mirror. I held up Zara's picture, the one with her proud, natural hair. This is the child you told to shrink herself. She broke the dress code, he said flatly. She wore her culture. I snapped. And you punished her for it. His voice rose. We're not targeting anyone. The policy is neutral. No, it's vague, conveniently vague. Unnatural hairstyles? Define it. He didn't answer. That I turned to the board. Because I will, it means black. It means different. And you wrote it that way on purpose. A man in glasses cleared his throat. We didn't mean intent. Doesn't erase impact, I said. Zara cried for hours. She almost didn't want to go back to school. You built a system that told her she was wrong just for existing. Edwards muttered under his breath. She could have complied. She did nothing wrong. I cut in. You just didn't want to see her. The woman in floral blazer whispered to a colleague, then looked up. We're reviewing the policy immediately. Edwards stiffened. You're caving to pressure. No, she said. We're finally listening. I could see the shift, small but real. Cracks forming where silence once lived. I stood there a moment longer, letting the weight of it settle. When I turned to leave, Edwards called out, "This isn't over, Ava." I looked back over my shoulder. "You're right. It's just beginning." He called me in without warning. No notice. Just a knock on Zara's classroom door, a secretary's whisper, and a stiff finger pointing toward the front office. The hallway felt tighter than usual. I stepped into Principal Edwards' office and closed the door behind me. He stood behind his desk, palms flat like he was bracing for a storm. "Mrs. Johnson," he began, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Thank you for coming in on such short notice." I didn't sit. I didn't have much of a choice, did I? His lips twitched, somewhere between a smile and a twitch of regret. "We've been monitoring the situation online. The post your friend made, it's gotten traction." I kept my arms crossed. "That post is our reality." He cleared his throat. "Right. Of course. Look, the district is concerned. We'd like to offer a formal apology and reinstate Zara immediately." I finally sat, not because I was tired, but because I wanted to look him in the eye when I said, "You want to apologize with conditions?" He blinked. "Excuse me." I leaned in slightly. "You didn't call me in here because you realized what happened was wrong. You called me in here because people are watching now. That's not fair." "No. What's not fair is Zara being humiliated for wearing her natural hair." He raised both hands, palms out. "We're trying to make this right. We're even prepared to make a generous donation to the Black Student Excellence Fund." A lump rose in my throat, but I swallowed it down. "A donation? Like hush money?" His voice tightened. "That's not what this is." "Then why ask for the press release to be pulled?" He froze. I let the silence stretch. He didn't expect me to know. Maya had told me just this morning. The school was pressuring journalists to take down their coverage. I stared at him. "You're not sorry. You're scared." His eyes hardened. "This kind of attention, it hurts the school's reputation. It hurts our staff morale. It could ruin my career." There it was. I stood, slow and deliberate. "You thought ruining a little black girl's confidence was fine. But now that your name's trending, it's a crisis." His face flushed red. "That's not what You suspended my daughter over her hair, Mr. Edwards." "I followed policy." "Your policy?" I took a breath, steadying myself. "And now you want to rewrite the ending, make it neat and silent. But you don't get to control this story anymore." He stepped around the desk, trying to soften. "Ava, please, think about your daughter. She doesn't need to be in the spotlight like this." I felt the rage simmering beneath my ribs. "You didn't think about her when you pulled her out of class. When she came home crying, asking if she looked wrong." He flinched. "She's 8. She still believes in fairy tales. But now she also knows what racism feels like." His voice dropped, almost pleading. "I'm trying to protect the school." I stared him down. "I'm trying to protect my daughter." A silence fell between us. Heavy, charged. He broke it first. "We'll issue the apology publicly if that's what it takes." I walked to the door, hand on the knob. "What it takes is real change, not performance." I paused before opening it. "And just so you know, we're not hiding anymore." Then I left, and this time, I made sure the door slammed behind me. "I need you to print 20 copies of this," I said, sliding the thick folder across the counter to the clerk at the FedEx print station. "Double-sided, legal format, and I need it fast." He glanced at the cover page. His eyes flicked back to me. "You're suing the school district?" I didn't blink. "No, I'm holding them accountable." My hands were shaking, but it wasn't fear. It was fire. Controlled fire. That kind you carry in your bones when too many doors have been slammed in your face for too long. I had spent nights drafting this lawsuit, every page soaked in every injustice, every email, every name, every silence. Walking back to my car, I caught a glimpse of myself in the glass door, chin high, eyes fierce. That wasn't the woman who once let things slide. That woman was gone. When I picked up Zara from school that afternoon, she had a strange look on her face. "What's going on?" I asked. She hesitated. "Some girls came up to me in the hallway." My stomach tightened. "What did they say?" "They said thank you." I blinked. "For what?" One of them, Amara, said, "Because of you, I wore my afro out today." I sat there, stunned. My daughter, who had been shamed for existing, was now inspiring resistance. I reached for her hand. "You proud?" I whispered. She nodded slowly. "I think so. It's weird. People are looking at me like I'm loud, even when I don't say anything. I smiled. That's called presence. When we got home, Maya was waiting with takeout and wide eyes. Girl, what is all this I'm seeing online? You in interviews? Press releases? I dropped the legal envelope on the table. That's just the beginning. She raised her eyebrows. You really filed it? Yep. And I made sure every major outlet got a copy. You always were the quiet one, she said, half joking. I paused. When I was Zara's age, I thought silence was survival. Maya sat up straighter. Damn, I remember one time. I began, eyes fixed on the floor. A teacher told me my tone was disrespectful when I asked to go to the bathroom. I didn't say a word for the rest of the year. That's trauma, Ava. I know, I said softly. But this time I'm loud. Maya leaned forward. How loud? I pulled out another document. Loud in court. Loud in the media. Loud enough they'll choke on every lie they tried to hide. She exhaled slowly. They never saw you coming. I shook my head. No. They thought I'd take the apology and go. That I'd cry behind closed doors. That I'd be grateful for scraps. Zara peeked around the kitchen doorway. Can I ask something? Of course. She walked over carefully, her voice unsure. Does fighting make you tired? I knelt in front of her. Yes, baby. It does. But staying quiet makes me disappear. And I won't vanish for anyone. She reached out and touched my shoulder. I don't want you to get hurt. I looked her in the eye. I already was. But now I'm healing. With every word I speak, every paper I file. I'm teaching them what it means when a black mother refuses to bow. She nodded. Then I'll be loud too. I smiled, tears forming. That's my girl. The next day, we walked into the school like a storm. Zara wore her afro bigger than I'd ever seen it. I wore a tailored suit and a look that said, "Don't try me." We passed other black students. One gave a quiet fist bump. Another whispered, "You changed everything." I didn't need a podium. This was the speech. This hallway. These looks. This ripple we started. And I hadn't even stepped inside a courtroom yet. The mic felt cold in my hand, but my voice burned hot with purpose. My daughter's hair is not a distraction. Your racism is. Gasps spread like wildfire through the press crowd. Cameras clicked. Pins scratched. Zara stood beside me, chin up, fists clenched, her afro catching sunlight like a crown. I didn't look at her. I didn't have to. I could feel her strength feeding mine. A reporter pushed forward. Miss Carter, what do you hope to accomplish today? I met her gaze. Justice. Not just for Zara, but for every black student forced to shrink themselves to fit inside a broken system. Another one shouted, "Do you plan to file charges?" I leaned in. The state board already has my complaint and a full copy of the discriminatory grooming policy. Let's see how long that holds up in court. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Do you believe Principal Edwards is racist? A voice asked. I paused. I wanted to scream yes. But instead, I said, I believe he knew exactly what he was doing when he humiliated my daughter. And silence from the district makes them complicit. I ended it there. No more questions. Just truth left hanging like smoke in the AIR.AS. I turned. Zara grabbed my hand. You were amazing, Mama. I looked down at her. So were you. I was scared, she admitted softly. I was too, I whispered. But scared women still change the world. We walked back into the building. The same school that had tried to break her spirit now had no choice but to face her fire. Inside, the air was tight. Reporters hadn't been allowed past the gates, but their echoes lingered. Teachers avoided our eyes. Students peeked from behind. Lockers, wide-eyed. Some whispered Zara's name like a rumor. Others gave her small nods. Respectful, grateful. We passed a girl with deep brown skin and long braids. She leaned in and murmured, "Because of you, I wore my afro out today." Zara smiled. Just a little. But I saw her heart swell. The emergency board meeting was being held in room 104. We waited outside while the door remained shut. I could hear muffled voices inside, arguing, some defending, some denying. My stomach churned, but my spine stayed straight. Finally, the door opened. A woman with a clipboard stepped out. Ms. Carter, the board has reached a decision. Zara squeezed my hand. I gave her a look that said, whatever happens, we don't shrink. That we entered. All eyes turned. The superintendent cleared his throat. We've voted to place Principal Edwards on administrative leave without pay pending further investigation. Zara gasped quietly. I nodded once, and he continued, "We will be reviewing the grooming policies district-wide." He didn't apologize, but his voice was tight with embarrassment. That would have to do. For now. As we walked back through the hall, Edwards appeared from the office. His eyes locked on mine, hard and sharp, but behind them, I saw something new. Fear. I stepped close. "Next time," I said calmly, "think before you humiliate a child." He didn't reply. He didn't even blink. He just turned and walked away. Zara leaned into me. "Did we win?" I exhaled. "We started something. That's even better." Back home, Maya was already watching the news. "You were on every channel," she said, handing me a mug of tea. "That line, 'Your racism is, girl, you dropped a bomb.'" I chuckled, my muscles finally beginning to relax. They needed to hear it. Maya sat beside me. "Do you remember sophomore year? When you refused to take your braids out and they threatened suspension?" "Yeah," I said. "I took them out anyway. I was too scared." She nodded. "I was too." I glanced at Zara, sitting on the floor doing her homework, afro full and proud. "She's not." "No," Maya said. "Because of you, she didn't have to be." My chest tightened. When I was her age, I thought silence was survival. Maya took my hand. "And now," I said, "I'm loud. Loud in courtrooms. Loud in front of cameras. Loud on every page of this lawsuit." I looked down at Zara. "And they're gonna feel every word." "Zara, come here, baby." I held the printed policy in my hand, my fingers trembling just a little, not from fear, but from the weight of what it meant. She walked over slowly, still cautious, still holding herself like the world might strike her again if she stood. Too tall. But her eyes, those deep, knowing eyes, searched mine. "What is it, Mama?" I tapped the top of the page. "Read this with me." Out loud. She took the paper from me, sat beside me on the couch, and started to read, her voice small but steady. "The district affirms the right of all students to wear their natural hair, including styles such as braids, locks, twists, and afros." Her voice caught. She blinked. Then she looked at me. "They changed it," she whispered. I nodded, heart pounding. "They changed it. But because of me? Because of you. Because of what they did to you, and how you stood anyway." She looked back down at the page, reading it again, slower this time. Then she whispered, "So now no girl has to feel like I did?" "No girl," I said, wrapping my arms around her. "You changed the rule book, baby." She sank into me, silent for a few moments. Then she pulled back and looked up at me. "Mama, I didn't even want to go back. I know. I still feel like they'll look at me. They might. But I want to walk in anyway." I smiled through the sting in my chest. Then we walk in. We spent the evening rebraiding her hair. This time, I didn't rush. I didn't tighten too hard. I wanted every strand to be wrapped in softness and pride. "You nervous?" I asked, my hands moving through her curls. "A little," she said, "but more proud." That made my heart swell. When morning came, she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her headband. The sun hit her face just right, and I swear, she looked like she was glowing from the inside out. "I look good, right?" she asked. "Baby, you look like the revolution." She laughed, a real laugh. The kind I hadn't heard in weeks at AT school. We stood at the front entrance for a moment. She took a breath, then another. "You ready?" She nodded. We walked in. Teachers passed us in the hall, eyes flicking toward her, then quickly away. No one said a word. Not about her hair, not about the policy, just silence. And sometimes, silence is a blessing. At the classroom door, she turned to me. "You coming in? This one's yours, baby." She nodded. And then, my God, she squared her shoulders, lifted her chin, and walked through that door like it was hers to open. I stayed in the hallway, just for a second. Long enough to hear the class greet her like nothing had ever been. Broken. No comments. No stares. Just space. Just peace. When I walked back to my car, the paper with the new policy was still in my purse. I pulled it out and read the last line again. "All children are entitled to learn without shame." I let out a shaky breath and smiled. "We don't shrink anymore, we shine."